So Dean Thomas eats a lot of film, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you both have obviously watched the first two meetings back. Any major takeaways from the first 10 rounds between these fighters before we spin it forward?
The biggest takeaway is that these guys have spent 50 minutes in the cage with each other, and we don't know who's better.
Ha.
That's the biggest takeaway because they were able to employ their game plans. They've been able to make adjustments. Going into this third fight, you're like, okay, what is going to happen? Because I'm not sure what can actually happen because these guys spend so much time with each other, but we don't know who's better. That's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah, you know, I watched them both again this morning, and just even though they were both very, very close, I think Volkanovski dominated the first fight. I'm with you, John. I think he probably won all 5 rounds. But it was kind of his distance management where he didn't, I think in the second fight, he chased Max a little bit and couldn't get to him. In the first one, he did a really good job of making Max come to him. So Max would step into that range, and then he'd rip the leg kick and punch on his way out. It seems like Max adjusted to that very, very well in the second fight. Volkanovski came on strong in the second half of it. Again, I think probably Max won that fight. So I have no idea what this third fight's going to look like because the adjustments are going to be huge.
And I know one thing. The winner will be the best featherweight of all time. Because to me, these are the best 2 featherweights of all time. I don't care what nobody says. Like, even Max was like, no, Jose Aldo. Listen, don't listen to Max. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's either him or Alex are the best featherweights of all time.
All right, so on the Volkanovski side, in our fighter meeting this week, he said, and he says this humbly, right, but when he beat Max the second time, kind of beat him more with his competitive spirit and his will and his athleticism than he did with this layered mixed martial arts skill set that he now has 2 years later. What have you seen in terms of the evolution from Volkanovski over his last 2 fights?
I mean, he just showed how smart and how much of his IQ is. Like his IQ is so high level. He's such a chess player, and I think that's the biggest evolution that we've seen from him.
I think he's genuinely fighting like a champion now. When he fights Max, it seems like he's chasing Max, like he's trying to take something from Max. His last 2 fights, I've seen a guy that went in there knowing I'm the champion, you don't belong here.
It's always interesting when people start talking about legacies when these careers are incomplete. You can argue that Alexander Volkanovski right now is at the midpoint of his UFC career. Perhaps Max Holloway is a little bit deeper into his UFC run. Max Holloway is the underdog here, and I think most people would say rightfully so. If you lean into the UFC 276 countdown, you see a big focus on strength and conditioning. They talk a lot about a war of attrition. In terms of adjustments and Max Holloway's approach, how do you see him mentally, physically, and otherwise coming in here on Saturday, Anthony?
Well, I think he needs to push it. He needs to push. He can't get a slow start.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing this talk about Max Holloway's strength and conditioning and his conditioning. Like, in 10 rounds, I didn't see either guy really fade. I didn't see either guy really have any issues there. So it's so weird to me.
I agree with
both of them talk about that a lot as if there was an issue there to begin with.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.